Hello, I'm football commentator Derek Ray, and you're listening to the Foot Weekly Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to week 10. We're into double digits. This is a content episode, and as you'd expect, I have with me Josh Excels. Hello, Josh.
Yeah, good to be here. I had a pretty heavy weekend. I went to 𝗵𝗪𝗀𝗀 at a warehouse project on Friday, and that was and then they're ripping up the car park in the place next to me. So if you hear a lot of like mechanical banging in the background, I can only apologise.
It was a heavy weekend for you, but our next guest is a Spurs fan, probably even heavier. We have NateTheFUTAccountant. Welcome back.
Great to be back on the podcast. The only saving grace about the Spurs loss is that 85 rated 𝘂𝘠 will fit Evos sooner than the 87 upgraded Martinelli. That's the only thing.
And in cope, I think, as the kids would say.
Yes.
No, that's a good point, actually. I sometimes feel with these showdowns, them now being 85, you can't sneak them into Evos like you could with those 84s, which is a bit of a shame. But anyway, we should get into the content. There's a lot of content to discuss, and I think there's a lot of informing we can do, which is always good. But we'll start off by getting Nate to pick last week's pound for pound powerhouse. The options were 𝘃𝗃𝗃𝗀𝘀, and I think he was through that Evo, the 100k anticipate +1, and then Dan Ballard, the team of the week, and then Højbjerg, the captains, and team of the week Mika Marmol. So who are you going? Quite a rogue selection, I have to say. But yeah, who are you going to go for?
Yeah, interesting selection. Both Ballard and 𝘃𝗃𝗃𝗀𝘀 look really good in Evos now, or future Evos like that. Dan Ballard could look really good. Højbjerg, wow, 77k. I did not realize he was that expensive. That was the card I was initially going to pick when you read out the list. But I think
I should say he was 40k last week when nominated.
It's a crazy rise. Yeah,
and he's an ex-Spurs player as well, isn't he, Nate? So.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards his card, but I think I'm going to go with Ballard because Bruiser 𝘃𝗃𝗃𝗃 on a center back, like that is unique.
You were so close to going for mine, then you went for Josh's.
I think that's the first one I've won this year.
Is it? Well, I'm happy for you. Get him off the mark. Okay. Well, moving swiftly on then to this week's pound for pound powerhouse. And yeah, we'll start with you, Nate. Is there a particular player you're looking at? And are they going to gain 35k in a week?
Hey, maybe if it's an FC Pro Live card, which I am kind of eyeing right now, especially because, not that these all have the chance to go up in price, but some of them are already some decent cards. And I'm already looking towards like future Evos too in the next couple of weeks of Black Friday, and hopefully the rating requirements going up on Evos a bit. That Billy Gilmore for 30k, intercept plus with 85 defending looks like a very good CM/CDM. Incisive long ball tiki-taka. He's got holding ++, which is what I use on one of my center mid positions, and he at least has the deep line playmaker plus. So I think that's a very solid card for 30k right now, and depending on how his pro does, could be more, but also could be less. So yeah,
that's always the question. And yeah,
I'm wondering how much his price is propped up by the Scottish SBCs that we've got with the Fanta cards, especially considering we've got quite a few Napoli specials. I think at the moment you've got obviously McTominay from those Scottish ones, and then I think there's a Højlund that's had a pretty big rise as well off the back of it. So
yep.
It's a nice card though. Like Intercept Plus, I think is very nice to have, and having tiki-taka, incisive, and long ball is a solid 3. I think if his pro does do well, and he's shown some form in qualifiers, he's beaten 2 of the other qualifiers into the Pro Open, then there's the few upgrades there. I think it could be a nice card.
There's a chance.
Yeah, that's good. I think it's got good play styles as well. And actually, as we're going to be talking about these FC Pro players, maybe I'll just mention the upgrade path now, so we can think about that as we go through pound for pound. So the first upgrade, and it's based on the Pro's performance. We'll get into that a bit more. But the first one for get 3 FC Pro points is +1 skill move or weak foot. And then the second one, get 10 FC Pro points, is +1 overall. And then we've got get 16 FC Pro points, another +1 overall. Qualify for the knockouts is 1 playstyle plus. reach the top 4, which is 1 alternate position and 1 role plus, and then win FC Pro, which is +1 overall and +1 skill moves or weak foot. And I guess we should say that the get 16 FC Pro points and qualify for knockouts are so qualify for knockouts gives the Playstyle Plus is going to come. And in fact, we did double check to confirm in the sort of second round of games. Actually, can they reach 16 points in the first round of games? They can't, right?
So there'll be 5 matches on each game day that each player will play, because it's a double round robin. So the max they can get is 15. So, you need 3 wins and a draw to get to the 10 points to get the +1 overall. Yeah.
So that'll be January by the time we get to the 16 pro points, and then qualify for knockouts. The second Playstyle Plus, or first for some of these, I guess, will only come at the end of that second round. So that'd be January is it 25th or something like that?
20th.
20th.
Yeah, 20th.
Well, January the 20th is when the final games are. Obviously, there's usually then a bit of a lag before we get those upgrades, and they've done a kind of special thing for the Playstyle Plus upgrade where there's a selection of 3 that apparently the pro gets to choose. We'll see. That there's a lot of Tiki-Taka Plus options in there, and if they aren't the ones picked, then I'm going to be questioning whether the pros really did actually choose them. But yeah, so despite the fact that people will have qualified from knockouts from like January the 4th, I think it is, onwards for those next few weeks, they won't get the Playstyle Plus until all of the qualifiers are done. And that just so happens to end about when Team of the Year starts. So read into that what you will.
So what does that suggest, for those Team of the Years and their Playstyle Pluses? Maybe we'll get onto that in a bit as we look ahead. But interesting as well, it seems like the Playstyle Pluses, that the players, the 3 that they're offering, are not playstyles that they have as base playstyles. So that's probably worth thinking about. So let's continue with pound for pound. I think, Josh, you're up next.
Yes. So mine's going to be a showdown card. And it's neither 𝘁𝘁 or Martinelli. But it is another 𝗵𝘃. And I can't remember what her actual name is because I've just been calling her 𝗵𝘃. Portillo. I'm going to go with. But I think when the 𝗵𝐶 first came out, there was like, she was very good, but the other option wasn't very good. So I completed 𝗵𝘃 just because I'm pretty sure it was like a cheap squad with an informal. It was an 82 and 83 squad. It was very, very cheap. And it was one of those where you go, okay, let's think about if she does get the win, what does this card look like? And when you think that her card at an 87 left wing was like 25k cost of 𝗵𝐶, and Martinelli's was 100k, and then you compare the 2 cards, like 𝗵𝘃 is pound for pound if you do that comparison, because she's just like got stats everywhere. She's got Rapid Plus, which like I think is quite meta because Nico Williams is used an awful lot, and I think the Rapid is actually what makes him feel even quicker. He's got a lot of pace on his card, but that Rapid Plus feels like the playstyle that allows you to just kind of get behind a defender. When you're running parallel, they just take those extra few strides that get you ahead. But she's got like cracking positioning and finishing at 90 and 87. She's got very good. In fact, I actually think we're showing her card on screen. Her actual in-game card is better because this is her original card, which is mental to think about it. So her original card was 88 pace, 84 shooting, 83 passing, 86 dribbling. She's now got +2s across the board there to 90 pace, 86 shooting, 85 passing, 88 dribbling. Just a wild, wild card. Like really, really good.
Yeah, I mean, it has been quite interesting how, I mean, they've really lent into showdowns in a way I wasn't really expecting. And we've had loads of live content anyway, in the form of if we get Thunderstruck and it's live as we expect, that's 3 different back-to-back live campaigns, which is quite interesting. I'm going to go for a player who isn't live, and is someone that I just always feel like when I see a player like this, you just know they're going to rise, and hopefully Nate agrees with me, otherwise I'm probably wrong. And that is the team of the week of Malo Gusto.
Oh yeah.
Ooh.
he's 84 rated, so really in a good spot for Evos. He has such like a clean, like just 80s on all the key stats, just above 80 on all the key stats. So just face stats, physical's 80, defense is 80, dribbling's 83, and passing is 82. And then if you actually look at the in-game stats, that's actually quite reflected in those stats, apart from his strength is a little bit lower. But yeah, he's really good across the board, apart from, also I should say heading accuracy and free kick accuracy being low is always a good sign, right? For a fullback. But yeah, he's got 89 pace. He's got like just a really well-rounded, solid looking card. And I think, yeah, future Evo potential means he should rise. I mean, I think just anyway, Team of the Weeks obviously tend to rise. And the fact he's a Premier League Chelsea right back who's French is just kind of like, yeah, a bit of a no-brainer in my opinion. So he's the perfect kind of pick him up and pop him in your club kind of player. And actually, I think it's been interesting for this cycle, Nate, that feels like a kind of viable investing strategy, which is sometimes not so consistent, but they've actually required quite a few Team of the Weeks in SBCs recently, right?
Yeah, that has worked for either just stocking in the club for Evos, like I think way back to the beginning of the year for like the Inform Ansu Fati. Like now that card's extinct 30k plus because he fits into some Evos. And other Informs too that have moved a whole bunch in price. I guess he's not quite extinct, or maybe he's max price. Yeah, he's 30k max price.
Yeah.
So yeah, that stuff is, you don't see the fruits of your investment right away, but if you put 10k in a card in a club, away 3-4 weeks ago, and then it turns out being 30k like in a month's time, that doesn't matter. That's great. That's great.
I think absolutely. The league of the player, the nation of the player, and the like hype level of the player, or the kind of how known they are, is quite a big factor in terms of them rising, because actually there's quite a lot of options for Evos generally. You wouldn't have thought that if you play in the higher divisions, honestly. Like, you do see the same Evos quite frequently.
Which is why that Malo Gusto and the Casemiro both, I think, are good club stocks, if you will, for 84 Team of the Weeks.
And another Team of the Week with a huge pace upgrade, that Casemiro. It's like a plus 40 or something, which is quite wild. He does look okay. He's one of those players with like slightly, not weird playstyles, but maybe he's going to be blocked from some better Evo playstyle upgrades just because of his current ones, and they're not amazing. But I'm sure it'll still be popular for Evos and a good investment either way. Right. I think we can move on from pound for pound, and we can get into...
Just before we go into Pro Open, I just, like, on the topic of Team of the Weeks, it's probably worth talking about the Lucas Paqueta, who's 5-star, 4-star, really well-rounded, and then fit into the competitive Catalyst Evo, which just made him look absolutely ridiculous as like a Brazilian Premier League midfielder. He ends up with like a 91.2 GG rating. Just crazy card.
Yeah, I actually already started evolving him, and so have pinged on him already, and I was kind of like considering that, but I don't think I want long ball plus, to be honest. So I'm going to wait for maybe the chance of putting a different playstyle plus on before doing that. But yeah, it does look really good. Also, no defensive upgrade. But yeah, with box to box roll being so meta and him having the plus, it is he scored 4 goals in one game for me actually while I was evolving him.
Bless you, thinking the defensive stats important.
Yeah, I know. Well, yeah, playstyles maybe, not the defensive stats. Actually, that's a good point. Right, should we move on to FC Pro? And I know, Josh, we couldn't get Buckley, but we do have you, and you've done a bit of research into the pro players, and so we can give people a bit of a rundown in terms of who looks good. And I guess we talked a bit about the structure of how the competition's going to work, but maybe the first thing to say is that we're recording on Monday, and very soon they are about to start their first group round of games, which is Group A. So if we talk about any Group A players, probably when you're listening to this, you can just go see how they did in Group A, and they won't play again until is it January? They start again?
Yes. Yeah.
So I guess that is really worth noting. Are we finally getting some car park sounds, Josh? I'm hearing a reversing.
Yeah, someone's backing up. Yeah,
I wasn't sure if you were definitely sure, because I haven't heard anything in the background, but now, yeah, we've got a goods vehicle coming in.
I was going to make no, that was just your mum. Anyway. Too old for that.
I thought you were going to mention like a really slow player and be like, yeah, that's ex-player running back.
Casemiro before his info.
Anyway, so I guess anything else to add in terms of the structure before we get into the specific players?
So just say that groups A and B are tonight as we're recording, and tomorrow night's the 24th and 25th.
Mhm.
Then there's a week until Group C, and then a week again until Group D. They'll all play 5 games. It's like a double round robin. There's 6 teams in each group. You need to finish in the top 4 to qualify out of the group. And then it's just a classic knockout format then through to the final. So it goes over a long time, and there will be 1 or 2 pro cards that end up looking absolutely unbelievable. It always happens, and despite how like the initial kind of promo is received, I like the way that they've done it with the kind of choosing the playstyle plus. I kind of quite like that, so that you kind of know what you're getting into, or have an idea of what you're getting into with each of the cards.
Yeah, for those wondering, actually, we should say you can see that by doing the right stick click, or the right pressing the right stick on the player and go to additional info, and you can see the options that the pros can choose from. And anyone who's, I guess, following the pro scene vaguely will probably know which one they're going to pick, because sometimes there's actually kind of one option you're like, oh, well, I mean, if it's tiki taka or whatever, and the others are bad, you kind of know, and it's not super generous, let's just say, but it's an extra playstyle plus.
So to get into like, who do we think is going to do well? I want to preface this by saying expert commentator, probably the person who's watched more pro games than anybody else, Rich Buckley, told us that KTZN wasn't going to get out of the groups last year and had no chance and end up getting out of the groups. So this is very difficult to predict, right? However, let's start with Group A, where obviously the headline is Anders. He's probably going to be the favourite for the tournament. Is just so consistent. So, and he's got Darwin Núñez, and I think that is kind of priced into the 200k that Darwin Núñez card is. He is a very good card. He's got low driven plus, which is meta. One of his playstyle plus options is tiki taka plus. So if we had a low driven and tiki taka plus player coming out the other end of that, that's just going to be wild. You're going to see a lot of people trying to get that card into their teams. In his group is 𝘃 as well. So we're going to get Anders versus 𝘃 twice. Now, 𝘃 was supposed to step back from the pro scene to concentrate on content. And that pressure release of not needing to kind of succeed just at being a pro has actually made him better. Bit of a wild card, really. He beat Stingray and 𝘃𝗏𝗀𝗀 in regionals. And, both of them have qualified for the Pro Open, and 𝘃𝗏𝗀𝗀 is actually in 𝘃's group. So there's a good chance he kind of will get to that 15-point mark, or 16-point mark as it is. That brings me on to 𝘃𝗏𝗀𝗀, who's got Giroud as his card. He auto-qualified because he was a top 4 finisher in the Pro Open last year. Had a decent result in regionals that happened last weekend. So, not a bad option, and I think there's a lot of people who really want him to do well, because a kind of decent Giroud is always a lot of fun. Yasko, who's got 𝘗𝑓ries, who I'm not sure I've heard of before. He is a League 2 player, which I swear we had a League 2 player last year as well. He is a bit of an unknown quantity, and in a group this tough, I wouldn't expect much from him, but you never know. Lucas has Honorat, decent links, French in the Bundesliga, and quite versatile, can play any position on the right-hand side. I would be surprised if he got out of this group. And then 𝘐𝗏 is the final player in this group, who's a very experienced player. He's got Nuno Tavares. Maybe the experience will help kind of bring him through, but we'll kind of have to see on that front. So I think I might have said the top 4 go through. It's the top 3 that go through. I knew it was half the group that go through. So you would expect, I think, in Group A, it's going to be Anders, 𝘃, and 𝘃𝗏𝗀𝗀 would be the 3 that I would expect to go through. They are the top 3 ranked in terms of the rankings, although they're very heavily influenced by 25. But it's probably the most difficult group, I think, in terms of all-around quality. So, yeah, I think Darwin's a pretty safe bet. I think that's why he's been quite heavily invested into. And if you remember, I think, did Anders not really struggle in game week 1 last year?
That does ring a bell, actually,
of the Open, and then absolutely cooked in game week 2 and ended up going on to win it. So like there'll be a lot of reaction, I think, to whatever happens today. But those 5 games that happen a month later, and usually after a patch, tend to have quite different results. So even if the card you've invested in doesn't do too well, there's still a chance for them, because a month is a long time in this game, as we've heard a lot in the last few weeks. It might be 2 patches deep by then. So then the other group this week, before I'll kind of let you pick up on any of those players or anything I've said, is Group B. So that's 𝘠𝘂𝘀𝘁, who's the second ranked player in the world. He's got Joshua Zirkzee. So fingers crossed he does really well. He won the World Championships last year. Bit of an unknown quantity in 26. Essentially, if you came top 4 in the Pro Open or in the World Championships last year, you auto-qualified in for the Pro Open this year, which means you didn't have to go through the qualifiers. So you're kind of a little bit untested. We had the regionals last weekend where your base depends on who you're playing against, and he came top 9 there, which, obviously not a bad result. But very experienced player. I would expect him to do fairly well. Also in Group B, you got 𝘬𝘰𝘠𝘦, another pretty big name. He's got wijnaldum, just a quality player. Not like he's had really good results this year as well. So I would expect 𝘬𝘰𝘠𝘦 and 𝘠𝘂𝘀𝘁 to go through. If they don't, that'll be a pretty big shock. You've got Oberon in here as well, who I think is a pretty well-known player. He's got 𝘚𝘅𝘁𝘐. He was runner-up in the Pro Open last year, but he's a bit unknown in 26, and he did quite badly in regionals last weekend. So it's going to be difficult to kind of know how that's going to go. Maybe the experience will bring him through the group stages, but I'm not sure if he'll go much further. Then you've got Umut, who's got Klosterman. He's experienced player, did pretty decent in regionals, so I think there is a chance that Klosterman gets a few upgrades. And then we've got, who else in Group B? 𝘗𝘅𝘁 with Fabio Vieira. He's beaten one other qualifier to the Pro Open in the qualifying stages, but he got knocked out in Swiss in regionals, which is kind of like the pre-qualifying format. So I maybe wouldn't be putting too much money into Fabio Vieira. And then the final player in this group is 𝘃𝑗𝑎, who has 𝘃𝑒𝑖𝑠𝑎. Now, he's gone very confident. He's bet on himself. He put a tweet out that he'd invested all of his coins into 𝘃𝑒𝑖𝑠𝑎 because, he's confident he's going to do well. And yeah, I mean, he's not got much LAN experience, it's fair to say, and is currently 1-3 in the 4 games he's played against players who are in the Pro Open in the Pro Open this year. So not a great record, but hey, if he's backing himself, why shouldn't you? So that's the first 2 groups that we'll see this week.
Yeah, I feel like maybe we take a break, let Josh recharge, and we'll come back in just a second to give some thoughts and hear about the rest of the players after this. Hello, and in this break, a quick reminder that the pod is made possible by supporters. The pod didn't used to be weekly. Yes, Foot Weekly wasn't actually weekly for a time. And then someone suggested setting up the Patreon. And since then, the pod has been weekly. And in fact, it's been twice weekly because there is that supporter episode every single week. So if you'd like to catch that episode and keep the podcast going, it's just £3 a month to do so. And you get loads in return. And there are perks higher than that, including access to the Discord too. So if you're interested and would like to support the podcast, then head over and search Support for Weekly. Go to Patreon and it's very easy to sign up. If you are a supporter keeping the podcast going, then a huge thank you for doing so. And if you do consider supporting, a huge thank you too. Right, let's jump back into the pod. Hello, welcome back after the break. So I thought it'd be interesting before we get into the rest of the players just to come to you, Nate, because I think Josh did a pretty good job in terms of covering the players themselves. I think in terms of the actual quality of the players, I don't know, yeah, some of the better ones are paired with better players or better pros, if that makes sense, which is kind of interesting. Giroud looks really good, for example, and he has a decent chance of upgrades. So I guess you can kind of think about things a little bit like that in some ways. But what's interesting is that a lot of these do have relatively high prices, and obviously there's potential for them to get upgrades quite soon. But then we have these weeks, and then we have sort of a Christmas break essentially, and then the players come back, and then they're fighting for that Playstyle Plus upgrade. So yeah, how do you expect things to go for these sort of live players? Because it is interesting the sort of long term sort of patterns with these live items.
Yeah, especially like when you think into January when these cards will be potentially some of the earlier 2 playstyle plus cards. We'll have to see where the power curve goes. But I mean, that's the big draw with the upgrades to these cards, I think, in that second round of the groups that they play in. So, I mean, right now it's very hype because we have games, we have the upgrades that are like, oh my goodness, these could happen this week type of thing. I would probably venture to say that they would be more inflated in price right now because they are the hype. They are the promo that's out right now, even for the groups C and D, whose games are happening later. I would still say right now they'd be a bit more expensive than during like Black Friday or maybe the week after that. I do think that with the big promo incoming, some of these will dip. People who have invested in them will want to get their coins out and go do other things like do SBCs and engage in all the content that we have during Black Friday. But maybe just a couple days after Black Friday, it'd be worth looking into these for Group C and D when they have their games. And then probably, again, you'd see them dip down in price once they're not as hype. Of course, the ones that are still really usable, like a Darwin Nunez or like Bremer per se, they're still going to be, used in a lot of teams and they'll still maintain their prices, I think, better if they're more meta. But I think that once we hit into like maybe even Christmas time, but right before we have that second round of games fire up in early January, that's going to be a great time to look at these again. And because they could get re-released in packs, technically, we have re-releases on Christmas around Winter Wildcards sometimes, short-term re-releases. But I think that you pick them up a couple weeks before their games start. If you pay a little bit more attention to those cards in that way, then you could end up making some big coins. Because once those second round of games come back up and are on people's minds and the upgrades are there for the taking, then they'll definitely be rising back up, I think.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, Josh. I think a lot of people will assume that these Playstyle Plus upgrades will come straight after the player qualifies, but it does clearly state that that will happen at the end of that second round of fixtures. So people will have to wait until, as we said, January 20th for those Playstyle Plus upgrades. And I mean, there are two things from that perspective. I guess one is, that is going to like mean maybe the hype kind of trails off a bit after the first sort of week or two, and then people are aware that that upgrade is coming a bit later on. But also, actually, it kind of gives us an indication of where the power curve might be at that point in the cycle.
Yeah, it leaves the possibility of Team of the Year going back to 2 Playstyle Plus still there, which I hope it does. I actually think the fact that Winter Wildcards went to 2 Playstyle Plus and then Team of the Year went to 3 Playstyle Plus last year, I think that was what caused such a pushback against the power curve in the kind of second half of the game, was just because where do you go? If you've introduced 3 Playstyle Plus players and then Evos that also gave you 3 Playstyle Plus, is like, where do you go from there? So I'm hoping the fact that they've delayed these until Team of the Year means that Team of the Year is only 2 Playstyle Pluses. Maybe a bit of a fantasy land, but it's another element of them showing that they are trying to delay the power curve a little bit, pushing that back, even if it's only a couple of weeks, because you can't qualify from the first kind of match day. So yeah, I don't know. I'm cautiously optimistic that it's been pushed back that far, even if it maybe does dampen a little bit of the hype for some of these players.
Yeah, I think it's true that is a promising sign. So should we continue with the final 2 groups then, Josh?
Yeah, so Group C starts off with Nicholas, who has Garnacho, who, just to point out,
both Argentinian,
centre mid as a position on his card, which I would love to watch in a real game. That would be hilarious. So he is somebody who qualified not because he came top 4 in either the Worlds or the Pro Open last year, but because I think it was Levy came top 4 in both. He was the top ranked player that hadn't auto qualified. So he auto qualified just by being the 3rd top ranked player. However, in the regionals last weekend, he walked through the LATAM Pro Open. So Latin America, he won that comfortably. So a good player, like experienced player. Bryce, who is another auto qualifier. He was the runner-up at the World Champions last year. He has Fabian Ruiz, another PSG midfielder with 𝘵𝗍𝗃𝗀𝘀. He hasn't been seen much in 26, and the one game that you can see is him playing 𝘵𝘰𝘤𝘦𝘰, where he got, as I wrote here, gubbed. He was absolutely battered. So slightly unknown quantity, I think, in 26, but obviously did really well last year. Also in Group C, you've got Stingray, who is arguably the form player in 26 at the moment. He's only lost one game all year. That's through both the qualifiers and the regionals, which he won last weekend. His player is Thiago, not that Thiago, but a centre-back Thiago from the MLS with Block Plus, who looks kind of okay. He's beaten 3 other qualifiers already, and absolutely dismantled Manu Bachor in the regionals last weekend. So, like, as I say, the form player, I think, coming into this. Danny Pitbull is also in Group C. He's got Gilmore. He beat 𝘵𝘂𝘃𝗧 and then came top 16 in regionals. Alihan, Group C, he's got Timo Werner. He's a bit of an up-and-comer. I think he's only 17. He lost to Tex in qualies, came top 16 in regionals. Like a bit of an unknown quantity. I have a feeling that we've had somebody on the podcast, I don't know who it is, who knows Alihan quite well and is like big on him being the next big thing. So one to watch out for, I think. Anna Spada is also in Group C, and he's got Hegazi, who must be the worst player with the most promo cards in the history of FC. I swear he gets a new promo card every single year. He's quite inexperienced at this level. He lost twice to the only person who's qualified to this tournament that he's faced in global. So I maybe wouldn't have too much of an expectation. And that wraps up Group C. For me, I think this is probably going to be Nicholas and Stingray, and then best of the rest kind of thing. Alihan versus Bryce, I think, is probably going to be who's competing for that third spot.
I'm actually quite interested in Werner because his base playstyles are really good. And I think he is pretty cheap at 30k. As you said, Alihan's a bit of a dark horse. Like, we don't know how he's going to do. He could do well. He could not do well. But actually, it isn't necessarily decided in this first round. And as a sort of younger player who might progress quite fast over the course of a cycle, he could potentially be actually much better by the time these players play again. And so the potential for him to get what would be that crucial 4-star upgrade to skills, actually, and then potentially a 5 on one or the other is quite nice. He's got quite a few good pluses as well, roles. So yeah, I think he's generally someone who could be a nice little investment if you really want to make one. It's a shame he doesn't have the Playstyle Plus, but actually he's 86 rated. Who knows what kind of evos we might get if he doesn't get upgrades. Potentially he has got a chance. And actually the first upgrade doesn't include an overall, so if he doesn't get to 10 points this time, he'd still have a chance of qualifying. He'd still have a chance of qualifying in the next rounds, but obviously would still be 86 rated. So I think that's quite interesting. Certainly a good one to pack, I think, and useful for like Gauntlet and things like that. So yeah, that's an interesting one. And then I think it's it's an interesting group. It feels a bit more interesting than the other two, where I think it's a bit more likely we know who goes through. But yeah,
it's a bit more unknown quantities, I think, in Group C.
Exactly.
Players who've done well in the past but haven't really showed what they can do in 26. Young players coming through for the first time, and a couple of unknowns. I think Group D is pretty similar as well, where there's a big name. 𝘬𝘬𝘬𝘦 is the headline, and his player is 𝘬𝘃, and I was surprised 𝘬𝘃 was only 12k. I know that he's right back with Whipped, and maybe that's what's putting people off, but just such a solid base of a card that I think with a few upgrades could look really, really good. I mean, he was probably the most consistent player last year, as they got top 4 both Pro Open and the Worlds. He got knocked out in the semis in both. He did come third, I think, in the Worlds because they have a third place there. But very consistent, and he obviously didn't then have to qualify in 26, but he did get to the quarterfinals at regionals last weekend, so has shown a bit of form in 26 too. Also in Group D is 𝘵𝘂𝗪𝘀, and his player is 𝘬𝘂𝘃𝗀𝘀, and he auto-qualified for coming top 4 in Worlds, so untested in 26 and had a pretty bad showing at Regionals last weekend, so a bit of an unknown quantity, I think, this year. Paolo Neto is also in Group D. He's got Bremer. He lost 3 games to qualify, which was the most you could lose, and then lost to another player in the Pro Open, Guga, in the regionals. So not a great showing in 26, but an experienced player. And I think in terms of a group, 𝘬𝘬𝘦𝘱 is a 6th ranked player in the world. Guy Barros is 7th, and Paolo Neto is 14th, and that's 3 of the highest rated players all in the same group that we've got. Then in Group D, you've got 𝘬𝘃𝗃, who's got 𝘬𝘃𝗃, who's quite expensive, like 575k. I think his price is only going to go one way, and it's not up. He's been beaten pretty comprehensively anytime he's played somebody who's playing in the Pro Open, including being beaten twice by 𝘚𝘂𝘚, who's also in this group, once in qualifiers and once in the regionals last weekend. So I would be surprised if he does well. But hey, you never know. He could be, this year's KTZN. Then also in Group D, you have 𝘚𝘂𝘚, who I just mentioned. His player is Ginter. So he has 3 wins against Pro Open qualifiers and lost to Catcher, so he's 3-1. So has shown some decent form, but he's a bit of an unknown quantity. So, a solid player, we'll have to see. He had a decent showing at regionals. And then the final player in this group is Guga Ferraz, whose player is the 𝗵𝗶𝗰𝗀𝗀 from City. He was kind of the surprise package, I think, at qualifiers, where he went unbeaten both in the Swiss format and then won all 3 games, I think it was, in the knockouts to qualify. Top 16 in regionals, probably not quite as good. Very unknown quantity to me, but that qualifying run, he didn't play a lot of great players, but that would give me a little bit of confidence if you did want to do an SPC. But yeah, so Group D is an interesting one. Kind of like with Group C, it's difficult to call. I would be surprised if 𝘬𝘬𝘦 didn't qualify. Guy Barros, you don't know what you're gonna get. Paolo Neto too. They're 2 quite highly ranked players, but haven't really shown it in 26. And then you've got 𝘱𝑒𝑟, who lost to. These are world rankings, by the way. World ranking 207 𝘚𝘂𝘚, and Guga Ferraz, who's world ranking 245. So those 2 could be real dark horse wildcards. So yeah, really interesting group, I think, this one.
Yeah, that's interesting. So yeah, Group C is next week, right?
Yes.
And then Group D is the following week. And just because that is a bit confusing, Group A and B are on the Monday, Tuesday of the week this podcast is coming out. Whereas the other 2 are in consecutive weeks following. So it's worth pointing that out. Okay, I think unless, Nate, you've got anything to add, we can move on from FC Pro.
I was just going to say, I know that there's a lot of in-depth analysis and thought that goes into these cards that maybe not everybody is, really eyeing right now for their teams or whatever with Black Friday upcoming. But these cards will be just items to keep your eye on because they do move. They will move in price for the upgrades. There'll be a lot of hype around that. So once there's game weeks that are upcoming, a couple weeks out, definitely just kind of keep these cards at the back of your mind, especially doing the research of what we talked about today of what pros are potentially going to have the better, runs in the groups and stuff like that. So I think it's worth just keep it on in the back of your mind as well.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, yeah, it's a good mantra to have with all live players, right? And especially if you get an untradeable one, keep an eye on them. You never know what might happen. And I think that the fact that you can kind of drop a few evos sometimes on these players is quite interesting as well. Let me maybe take us to a break, because I think after this we'll look ahead and talk about more live things in the form of Thunderstruck potentially, and we'll do that right after this break. Hello, welcome back after the break. Right, let's talk about Thunderstruck. For those who don't know, it's essentially the Black Friday promo. We've seen the leaks already. Thunderstruck is coming. It's going to be live, I think, from what the leaks are saying. So I think maybe we just kind of assume it's going to be similar to last cycle. That probably makes sense. And talk about, what this means for the game, because it is probably the biggest campaign we get in the first few months, or the first big one, I suppose. And I guess it's also worth saying we haven't talked about the SBCs yet, but the way that Thunderstruck tends to work, we will see a lot of SBCs, and it is probably worth holding fodder, especially considering the quality of SBC that is currently out. Although shout out for Ali Riley, who I did complete because that icon chem is very useful. I think I might have mentioned her on the gameplay podcast last week, but yeah, and she's pretty solid. So maybe that's something to consider. But yeah, I would hold off on the fodder and see what comes in Thunderstruck. But yeah, Nate, from your perspective, obviously it is an exciting time. We see content at a quite random moments sometimes throughout the Black Friday period, which is probably worth noticing. Yep. And yeah, what would you say people should look out for?
It's just kind of like a party, almost, is the way to describe it. It's like you got flash SBCs that are dropping every hour and a half. You've got multiple different re-releases of promo cards from Best of Team of the Week, Best of Campaigns, then the Thunderstruck and Thunderstruck icons. And then this year as well, the pre-order icons get upgraded the day before Black Friday, but then that whole team of the upgraded icons is in packs on Black Friday as well. So like the 92 PSG Zlatan and the 92 Iniesta, all of those cards are in packs upgraded. So there's going to be so many cards that are in packs. But then of course, like I mentioned with the Flash SBCs, it's not just Flash content. All of it, there'll be some of those. There will be a lot of other SBCs like bigger upgrade packs, crafting objectives, stuff like that we normally see. And then usually some pretty marquee player SBCs. Last year we had the On This Day icon Cruyff. That was a card that I did and loved for months on end. Evolved him time and time again after that. Oh, that card was amazing. So a lot of just massive content is going to be dropping because it's Black Friday and that's how it always goes.
He was 𝘃𝗧 Plus as well. Imagine him in FC26.
Man,
best
player. Crazy.
Yeah, Josh, from your perspective, anything to kind of add that people might want to look out for? Flash Evos, of course, potentially.
Yeah. I think Evos will probably be pretty good. It's weird, isn't it? We're going to have a new season as well. It's probably worth talking about. That's going to come on the Thursday. I wonder if that will come with reward changes. And so, because usually Black Friday is about giving good deals and not, getting even more money in. It's like it doesn't feel like we get anything discounted really. Sometimes we'll get like the 10 coin packs and little things like that to make sure you go to the store so you see all those packs that you could spend your FC points on. But I do wonder if maybe the giving back will be a slight reward boost for Thursday in the new season. And I think the new season will probably give us an idea of where the power curve's going. Even before the game was released, the kind of content team at EA were talking about Thunderstruck as one of those kind of step ups in the power curve.
Right.
Yeah. So, that will be interesting to see. Some of the leaks already have a few players to come out during Thunderstruck that I'm a little bit kind of curious about. I'm not sure we need a special Maradona just yet, if I'm being honest. But that kind of, it's always, the last few weeks I think has been a little bit tough. And it is every year, as Chu was mentioning when he was on the podcast. And usually it's Black Friday where everyone goes, game's back. We're back, boys. So, I wouldn't be surprised if we're kind of doing the content pod next week and are very excited about what's here. So, yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic. I don't think Thunderstruck has really missed yet. The 2 years that we've had it, obviously, it being a live promo is really fun, but it's the fact that it comes with all the SBCs around it, the fact it comes with kind of good evos. There's usually good things to grind in the menus. Potentially we'll get our first kind of crafting upgrade, which we haven't had yet. So I'm excited. Apparently there's going to be over 100 cards in packs over that weekend. If you add in the pre-order icons, the Thunderstruck players, the Thunderstruck icons, then I don't know what else could be in there. Maybe we'll get a best of. Maybe there'll be a kind of team of the week re-release. So yeah, I don't know. I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but I am excited for it. And I definitely think that we mentioned it on last week's content pod, but if you haven't already, stop spending your fodder on anything we're being given at the moment. I don't think it's going to be worth it. From a market perspective, I think the crash has already kind of happened, to a lot of those high-level cards. There's a few that keep rising, that like, it feels like every day there's something becomes in vogue and a few players will rise. But by and large, most things have dropped off. We had the SBC for 𝘬𝘯𝘁𝗍𝘀. I can't remember who the third player is in that. Cannavaro. All of their prices have dropped pretty drastically in the past week. Which I probably is due to the pricing of the SBC, but it felt like the SBC was maybe being priced as the price of those players was dropping. So pretty decent value, I think. So yeah, I'm kind of excited to see what it would bring, especially with live events as well. The potential for them to do something fun with gauntlets and with tournaments. It's massive. So I'm optimistic.
Like a flash tournament.
Yeah,
could you imagine?
I was going to say, I feel like they're bound to incorporate these live events somehow into Black Friday in an interesting way. So yeah, fascinated to see that. And I was going to say, it's been, just to look back a little bit, maybe we'll look forward a little bit more, but I've seen a lot of people saying, this has been maybe the last 2 weeks a particularly kind of rough Black Friday period. People saying that, it's always been a time, I think Tube explained this on the podcast, where people tend to kind of say that the game is kind of dying or whatever, because often other games are released, and also you don't tend to push things so hard because they want to up things again for Black Friday. But do you feel like it has been a particularly kind of, I don't know, less exciting sort of couple of weeks, the last 2 weeks, than we've had previously? Or is it just people kind of being fed up of the lull we have before the pickup?
It's always hard to tell, because when you're in the middle of it, you're like, oh, this sucks. This is the worst, right now, or the last couple of weeks, that's kind of how it feels, is like gameplay problems, which there definitely are problems there. Don't get us wrong. Like, I don't think we're saying that we're trying to argue against those things, but content wise and just the general state of the game and how it feels, like, it's always hard to think, is it worse than last year? Because you're in it right now, and that's what you're feeling. So I don't know. It's really hard for me to say too. I will say, like, Evos have been decently fun. Like, as of late, there's been some really good boosts. And of course, we had the really expensive 100,000 coin one, but like the low driven shot plus, even the competitive catalyst, the Paqueta card that we looked at earlier, that's a pretty dope Evo. Like, there's a lot of things you can do right now that are fun, but I think it's not anything that has been like, bam, like awesome type of situation. And the frustration with the gameplay, I think, bubbles to the top too. So I don't know. It's really hard for me to say, oh, it's worse than last year. I don't know. Yeah, that's where I'm at.
Yeah, it's funny actually, talking about kind of what we have had over this period. Josh has just made me think, because he's opened up the Evo tab on foot.gg, that we've had a lot of chemistry modifying Evos, and a lot of those available in rewards, which has been quite interesting. We talked about it quite a lot on a previous podcast. But I did want to point out that there is this positional excellence evolution, which is available through the FC Pro Open tournament. It's actually available through the qualifying tournament, not the tournament you qualify for, which is interesting because it is very strong. It gives the player full chemistry. It doesn't change their contribution to other players, which is worth noting, but it does give them full chemistry, which is really useful if there's just a player you're like, I really struggle to fit them in, but they're really good. And yeah, I think it's going to be pretty helpful for a lot of people. Gonna have to take a look at why it's giving 𝘵𝘂𝘂 as the option, because obviously that would technically be a worse chemistry boost than what he gets, although it wouldn't affect, because icons don't get affected by those changes anyway. It also says repeatable twice, which I don't think it is, so a few things to look into there, but yeah, it's well worth noting that exists, and you just need to win that initial tournament. Obviously not everyone will be able to, but you do get quite a lot of attempts, so and I think it is worth it. But yeah, it's been an interesting couple of weeks. It's funny, I feel like the gameplay is in a much better spot than it has been, so I think I said this previously, been quite enjoying the game from that perspective, and as you said, the Evos have been really good, and like being able to pick up Evos through these different tournaments and live events and blah blah blah, like that's been quite a nice addition too, I think. So personally, I haven't found it too bad at all, but I know some people feel differently about that. In terms of Evos, I guess before we wrap up, Josh, any particular ones to highlight? I know you complained about that silver one last week, but this one looks a little better.
Yeah, and if I was of the opinion that they learnt from the silver one last week and they've made this one better, then I would be like, good, we're making progress. But part of me just thinks like, I don't know, there was some reason why they couldn't give such a big boost for the CDM Silver Evo, that, because it would have been overpowered further down the line or something. But, giving us a 74 rated left winger with like insane pace and decent stats elsewhere, absolutely fine. I don't know. I think it's really good. I think it's free, which is also good. I wonder how much of this is them trying to encourage people to have evolution players that they use in the silver tournaments rather than just the icons. I don't know how successful that's going to be. But I think it's also encouraging people to kind of evo up lower rated players and worse players and try different paths. And I wonder if that's also why we're getting so many kind of these chem boosting evos that allows you to kind of add a random player that you like in. So I'm a fan of where we are with evos in general. I have a few issues, mainly around like kind of the positional stuff right now, where a lot of evos have max positions of 3, even if the position that you gain from going into the evolution is one you already have. And just stuff like that, obviously it's always going to be a work in progress. It's never going to be finished and perfect, but that's one of those things where it's like, that could have been better. And I like that they tried to call the low driven plus Evo something special, Estrella de Moncada, which I believe is Star of Moncada, Moncada being where 𝘵𝘲𝗃𝗀𝗀 is from. And if people weren't paying attention, this is the 𝘵𝘲𝗃𝗀𝗀 Evo. It essentially is giving all of the play styles that she has that I think make her incredibly overpowered. Low driven plus, the technical finesse and tiki-taka. And maybe it will mean we see less 𝘵𝘲𝗃𝗀𝗀s. I have a horrible feeling it's going to mean we just see 2 𝘵𝘲𝗃𝗀𝗀s in everybody's teams, and they, just one of them's not called 𝘵𝘲𝗃𝗀𝗀. So yeah, I mean, they're good. I think they've maybe learned a little bit from the 100,000 coin Evo, because I think that 𝘵𝘲𝗃𝗀𝗀 Evo could have easily been north of 50k, 60k. So that would suggest to me that not a lot of people have done that 100k Evo.
Although also there is another element, which is that 𝘵𝘲𝗃𝗀𝗀 is only what, like 7k, so they could only price it a decent bit more rather than a lot more, I suppose. But yeah, it's a fair point. Also, actually, I was just going to point out that she does have incisive, and the Evo doesn't give incisive, and I think that's actually one of the major things to point out. Like, if you're looking for options for this Evo, I would filter with incisive, because I think that is a huge thing in attack. And actually, she also has game changer, I believe, which is also nice. So like, she's still arguably better, but these players have a lot more pace, which is nice. I'd also say maybe use the height filter, just find players who are smaller, because that does make quite a significant difference, I think, to her as well. And she doesn't have a unique body type, it's worth noting. You can theoretically make similar players to her. But yeah, Josh, sorry, I did interrupt. So.
No, it's okay. I do also, before we kind of finish up, is just shout out the Titan Up Evo, which I think came out on the same day as the 𝘵𝘲𝗃𝗀𝗀 Evo, and so maybe got lost a little. But for a +1 overall, it gives +3 pace, +3 defending, +4 strength, and +4 aggression. And for just that +1 overall, it makes some centre backs look absolutely bananas. So yeah, I don't lose sight of that. I think you can do it twice as well. So if you're someone who is doing like a low rated team, that is +6 pace, +6 defending, and what kind of works out to being like +5 physical most of the time, is wild for just a +2 overall for a centre back. And the final thing is, I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't like if we saw some Evos coming up fairly soon that boost passing pretty majorly, because I think that's the one stat that I feel like is constantly underboosted right now. There's a lot of like great Evo paths where the passing is just not close to being good enough, especially for players that aren't central midfielders. So hopefully over Black Friday, we see some of that.
Yeah, I quickly want to mention the playstyles Trifecta Evo, because I think it's actually really, it doesn't look like a defensive Evo, but actually it's got that technical Trickster, which are more attacking, but then it's got pinged as the first playstyle it gives. So for more defensive players, if they've got 4 playstyles, then adding that pinged is going to be really helpful, I think, for playing the ball out the back and things. So it's worth looking out for that. Repeatable 3 times as well. And the other technical and Trickster Evos are Evos that you might have got elsewhere as well. I feel like they've been giving them out quite freely. In fact, we had Trickster in the season pass, which brings us nicely, Josh, onto closing on the season pass, because we have. I mean, I've been struggling. I said the other week I've been struggling for season pass XP, and that's still the case. Although they have been kind of generous in the last week.
Yeah, and I have got a pop-up now the last 4 times I've logged in, which I've never seen before, encouraging me to unlock the season pass, which I haven't done yet, because I haven't completed the season pass yet, because they haven't given enough SP in the first 3 weeks of the season to get anywhere near close to completing it. So of course I'm leaving it to the last minute. It just feels to me like bad management from like a content perspective. Like if you give enough SP, people will buy the season pass because they have enough SP and they want the stuff that they can see in the season pass. But if I'm sat on level 8 3 weeks into a 4-week season, I'm not going, oh God, look what I'm missing out on. Even if you then backload a whole load of SP in that final week to give me, 40k that I can easily get to, that's not that's not what season pass should be. I would much sooner us like earn season pass points just for playing every game. If we're not getting a proper bounty, give us a bounty every game in Rivals that gives us a varying number of SP points. Who cares if you finish a season pass quickly when the final player, Rodrigo, everyone who's used him said he's really clunky. So it's like, what harm would it have been? Like, and think about like the race that would then go on at the beginning of the season if you could just like play as much Rivals as possible to try and get this season. The
last week has been horrible. I've been playing the most bizarre combination of different players from different nations to complete SP. And I was trying to do the Brazil silver icons as well at the same time, and it was like, how many players can I like jigsaw into this squad to
I'm right there
pick
with
up
you.
the SP? And it's just not a fun way to play the game. And I committed, because it was relatively easy last season, I committed to buying and I had the points from the pre-order. I just committed to buying the pass early, thinking no big deal. But now I'm like, am I even going to get that Intercept Plus, which is for me, I think one of the more, and the Finesse Plus actually, for me they're the bigger rewards than the Rodrigo, I'd say. So hopefully at least make it to that.
I have always bought my season pass late into the season. I've never had this pop up before, which tells me that nobody's buying the season pass, or it's been very, very low amount of people have bought it up so far. It's like, that is what's going to happen. So just one of those things where hopefully for the next season that's been kind of taken on board.
I guess it's the first time they've probably experienced this in terms of the shorter season. I think they did mess up in terms of the amount of XP they put out because it was a shorter season, and so hopefully they learn from that moving forward. Right, I think we are probably ready to wrap up. So if you want to follow along with the market and everything Ultimate Team day to day, then check out Nate's YouTube channel, NateTheFUTAccountant, and on Twitch as well. Also the FUTAccountant over there. And Nate, it's been a real pleasure to have you back on the podcast.
It's been a pleasure being on once again. Roll on Black Friday.
Yeah, bring it on. And Josh as well, always nice to have you on, especially in your new role as Richard Buckley.
Yes, yeah. Well, when I'm commentating the Pro Open next year, you'll know where it started.
Yeah. And thank you very much, of course, to all you listeners tuning in. Should be said, actually, the supporter episode this week will have some more FC Pro expertise. Actually, we'll be talking gameplay, but we'll also get 𝗍𝘍, who's coming on to pick a player that he thinks is a good investment for FC Pro. So check that out if you're a supporter. And if you're not, you could sign up, get double the podcasts every single week including that supporter exclusive episode. You'll support the pod and keep it going. If you are supporting, a huge thank you for doing so. And a big thank you too to those icon patrons: Dave B, Darren W, Hugh J, Rob W, Josh R, Ralph, Brian, Michael B, Adam R, Make B, Michael H, Rob S, Michael K, Neil P, Jake S, Tom B, Alex M, Damon H, L, James B, Sam K, The Shirt Locker, Lee A, Chris G, Mark M, Dom P, Rob P, Roger D, Waterman, Also Ran, and Juicy. Plus a special thanks to Luke M, Dave B, Hugh J, Tom M, Darren W, and Pato Foot for advice and production assistance. Before I leave you, just one more thing to add though. Ultimate Team is a bit like life really. It has its many ups and downs. If you're having a few more downs than ups in real life in these more difficult times, then please don't feel that you're alone or need to struggle on without taking action. If you go to thecalmzone.net, there's loads of resources, advice, support, or even just a friendly chat for anyone who needs it. If it sounds like it could help you, then head over to thecalmzone.net. And for now, have a good one, and I'll catch you on the next podcast.